everyone! I found this doll in a thrift store. I don't actually know what she's from, but it doesn't really matter for today, because I'm going to turn her into a cottagecore doll. I of course start by first removing her hair. And for this cottagecore doll, I'm going off of a TikTok OC challenge. I'll put the requirements that I have to include on screen. Now, I followed the normal routine of taking her head off and trying to get all the rest of the plugs out with pliers, but her neck hole was just small enough to where the pliers fit in her head, but I couldn't wiggle them around to get any of the plugs out. So I had to cut open her head. I mark open her head and then just take an X-Acto knife to it. Then I can take my pliers and also tweezers to get the rest of the plugs out. I originally wanted to use hot glue to put her head back together, but it does not work, so I just end up using some regular old Elmer's glue. The next step of customizing is generally to take the face off, which I did try to do, but it wouldn't come off. I then discovered it was a sticker, but it wouldn't peel off, so I just painted over it. And this new skin tone did not end up perfectly matching with the rest of the body, and I thought it looked weird, so I also had to paint the rest of the body. I'm fine. This is all fine. But luckily, did not take too long. I paint her scalp in black, as you saw from the requirements. I also paint on her eyebrows off screen before I remember that I actually have to blush her, since, blush is one of the requirements and is also generally a thing you do when you doll customize. I don't know how I almost forget this step every single time without fail. Then, of course, I paint the whites of her eyes in and the rest of her eye. I wanted to try something a little different for this eye, so I start out by first putting a ring of dark blue around her eye first. This is going to be the darkest shade of blue. Then I put what I call the medium shade of blue in the middle of the eye, or in the top half of the eye. Then I take a light blue for the bottom half and blend all three of those colors together. I line her eyes off screen, then paint in her lips pink. I was going for like a nude lip. I don't know if it looks more like that or if it just looks more like lipstick though. I add extra detail to the lips this time because I wanted to try something new, but in the end you can barely see it unless you're looking very closely. I also add glossy varnish to her lips and eyes, which I attempt to show here, but it doesn't really show up. And I painted in those eye shines as well. The last thing I need to do for the face is her freckles. I really like adding freckles to dolls. If I had no self-control, I would add freckles on all of my dolls. Then I just have to shove her head back on. For her her hair, I'm going to give her 2 low ponytails. So I made those, rolled them up, and then hot glued them onto her head. This is just because I tried to use Elmer's glue here, but it was slipping off of her head and I couldn't really see a good way to hold it up, so in the end I just ended up hot gluing it. But I did use Elmer's glue for the rest of her hair wefts, which you can see here. This is only half of her head, and they're all radiating out, so they're going to be folded over in a minute. To fold all the wefts over, I use a hair straightener and a butter knife. Also wear gloves for this part because, you know, hot metal. And I use that as sort of a straightener to straighten her hair out, but I couldn't really do it that well on camera. After it gets all flattened down, it looks like this. Then I just take a rubber band and band it in place. And now I gotta do the other half of her head. It's just gonna be the exact same process, so I don't show it twice. I have personally liked this style and how she has 2 really thick ponytails. I was originally going to use this fabric, but I thought it looked too yellowish, so I got this one, which is kind of more teal-ish. I trace on the top of the dress pattern first. I tried to restrain myself and not give her a full circle skirt this time, so it's only a half circle skirt, just to make sure it wasn't too big and unruly. Her sleeves are going to be made out of this white fabric to make it look like there's a white shirt underneath. It's just so that I don't have to A, make a whole nother shirt, and B, so it doesn't add any extra thickness. Because on a doll scale, the thickness really builds up quickly. I also cut out a piece of white fabric and just glue it onto the front here. That's going to act like the shirt that's kind of peeking out. Once the glue is fully dry, I can attach the sleeves. And don't worry about the hole seeing the piece of fabric through it. Once it's on the doll, it's not going to matter. I also paint on some details. This little detail here was originally supposed to be a flower, but it looks more like a sun, so I just end up putting a flower there later. I also add a little green trim around the top of the collar. I add this same trim around the sleeves and the bottom of the skirt. I also add another one of those sun-looking flowers. I also replaced this with an actual flower later. I take these cute little roses and just hot glue them on. Then I take the shirt portion and fold it in on itself to put it together, then attach it to the skirt portion. After those two are attached, I can flip it over, tuck the sleeves in, and sew at the back. I turn the dress right side out, and really the only thing left to do is add snaps. For her shoes, I have this cute little pair of Monster High shoes. The only problem with this is she is not a Monster High doll, and that's a problem because her foot is shaped differently, meaning her heel doesn't go up as high as the shoe. So it just ends up looking really awkward. This is her legs straight up and down. So I took the more extreme route of what I could have done. I probably just could have made another pair of shoes, but I was set on these. So I went the Cinderella route and chopped her heels off. But luckily, I can just get on to painting the shoes. I paint the actual shoe part brown, the sole black, and the bows white. I was originally going to paint the bows green to match the dress, but when I put the white base coat on, I realized I really liked how that looked, so I just stuck with white. Her shoes are nice and simple now. It's going to contrast a lot with the hat, which I also have to make. I made this prototype just to test out that the pattern works, so I'm just going to be making this in another type of felt. I picked out this felt, which looks more like a straw hat, and I'm going to take the background out just because of how much I have to zoom out. And I take this hat piece and trace and cut it out twice. Then I take this little hole piece and trace around that, then make a circle around the hole for the brim. Once I got all those cut out, I set the brim aside for now and focus on the two top pieces, just sewing them together along the top. Then I attach it to the brim, also using a backstitch. I used a backstitch for all these, which I forgot to record, but you can see the seams as I used here. Then I hot glue a white ribbon along the edges of it. I thought about sewing it, but then realized it would take way too long, it would leave stitches, and it's gonna get covered up anyway, so I don't know why I added this ribbon in the first place. Yeah, remember how I said it was gonna get covered up literally 2 seconds ago? Well, I got all these flowers. So I just start throwing them on the hat, wherever I think they would look nice. I did try to think about where these would go. I spent a good 10 minutes because I was really nervous about putting these on. Once I feel like her hat is sufficiently cluttered, I move on to a little basket, which I make out of the same type of felt. I just fold up the sides like so, and it kind of looked less like a basket, more like a bell pepper, but it works. Then I just take a little strip of the felt and throw it on for the handle. Perfect. Then I also glue some flowers into the basket. Last thing I wanted to add were earrings. I have these little flower charms, which I paint purple. And the only reason I'm really adding earrings is because I noticed she had holes where earrings were supposed to go, and I thought it would look awkward just having 2 holes in her head. So I just dug out these flower charms. I take some green wire that I have after finishing the flower and just bend it into place. It ended up being way too long, but instead of cutting it short, I figured it would help anchor the earring in her head better and it would have less chance of falling out. And with that, she's done. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. See ya!